We're going live, folks. Howdy. My name is David Cobb, my comrade, Melissa Figueroa.
Hello.
We are here at the Green Party annual national meeting. It is our convention. This is one of probably half a dozen or more workshops that are happening. This one is a workshop on anti-fascism. We are going to go through and describe not only sort of our analytical framework, but then we are going to walk through a day-long movement school for revolutionaries that we do. Now, this workshop that we're going to describe to you is a full day. We are clearly in 50 minutes not going to do that workshop. What we are going to do is walk you through what the modules are of that workshop, right? So we'll walk through it. I will ask if you have clarifying questions as we're describing it. Please feel free to raise your hand and ask a clarifying question. If you have something that you're just dying to say around discussion, you got to hold that shit, right? Like we are going to be disciplined revolutionaries here. So a clarifying question is invited. A brilliant, insightful commentary, you just got to hold it. Can I get agreement from everybody on that? Because I will facilitate that, right? Mel, do you have anything to say before I do the framing and
just
opening?
want to lift up Jeffrey Cubbage, who is doing the live stream for GNN today. Thank you, Jeffrey. And if any good questions come through, we can take them from the online audience as well.
GNN questions, you capture any that you want. I also will now take the opportunity to lift up Craig Seaman, who is the technologist extraordinaire for the Green Party of the United States. He is also live streaming on The Revolution Will Not Be Televised, which is the National Green Party live stream. I kind of love the fact that now we actually have two networks where we are reaching out and almost as if we're able to synthesize and build a movement with multiple audiences. So welcome to the GNN audience. Much love to you. Thank you for joining.
Welcome, GPUS audience.
All right. So here's what we're going to do. I am going to start with a quick definition of fascism, right? And I think that this is really important. Fascism, I will actually start with Benito Mussolini, the famous fascist dictator, but also philosopher and theoretician. Mussolini said fascism, more appropriately, should be called corporatism because it merges the economic power of our corporations, our multinational corporations, with the military might of our nation state. And remember, he thought that was a good thing. He was proud of that. And so that is the 1920s, 30s version of fascism. You'll notice that Mel and I usually talk about Neo Fascism because what we're experiencing today is that, but something different. And in a nutshell, I will describe it this way. I believe the fascism of the 1920s that we saw was a political decision against the rising, call it socialism, call it communism, call it economic democracy, call it whatever you will, but the 1920s was the ruling elite making a political decision about how to squash that. I will submit to you the fascism that is emerging today is actually something a bit unique, because it is an objective reality of the changing labor relations. Capitalism is actually dying. Now, and don't applaud that. There's nothing to celebrate just on that because it's actually morphing and evolving into fascism objectively. Between automation, technology, robotics, whether you like it or not, you're a revolutionary. You know why? Because you're living in a revolutionary moment. Society will be restructured. It is literally being restructured now. I think Mel and I believe, and I think lots of other people believe, it's either going to break on the side of economic democracy, socialism, communism, the left's version of how that works, or the world is literally going to be fascism. It's going to be fascism of technology, robotics, and so forth, or it's going to be democracy based on it. It's one or the other. So that's when we talk about an anti-fascism, we're also actually talking about not bourgeois democracy, but actual democracy. That is not just political democracy, but economic democracy. Do we, the people, have the authority, the power, and the right to democratically decide how our social, political, and economic relationships are going to work? we as Greens have got to actually begin to understand the analytical framework associated with labor theory, with economic theory, and social theory. Mel, is there anything that you want to do before I turn it over to you for the
No, I think you've covered it very well.
All right, so now I'm going to turn it over to Mel, and remember, so that's the big picture. What you're going to see are a workshop that we have developed that we are taking around the country. We've done 5 or 6 now already, and for any of you in GNN, Green Party of the United States, in the audience, we are traveling the country. We're a traveling anti-fascist Movement School for Revolutionaries Roadshow. And Craig.
And Organizing for Revolution.
And also. bump it, say that again. Organizing for Revolution. So Nick, can we take the lights off so we can Mel can talk about the website?
Great. So this website's almost ready for launch, but we basically it's just a going over of the different modules that we have in the movement school. So basically each movement school, because local contexts are so different, and the sort of accumulation, the constellation of political forces, whether it's cross-party or the progressives and whatever thing, it's always going to be different in every single local, in every single place. So what we do is we basically custom design the day school for each local that wants to do it based on their particular needs and the particular sort of goals of the organizers. But we do have kind of a core curriculum, but with 4 goals in mind. One is to understand the larger social and historical context of our current political moment. Number 2 is figure out ways of how to collaborate with fellow radicals and progressives wherever they are, basically to cohere, and we'll show you sort of why that's important, to cohere a political force of the left. Number 3 is build a united front of the left to fight back against both neoliberalism and neo-fascism. We basically go over why that's important, and also a very, very important and almost sort of lost to history actual roadmap for how that happens, taken from the 1920s. And number 4 is to develop strategies for engaging elections and preparing to take and exercise power. Right now, I think, the left has been in the wilderness for so long that, I think speaking truth to power has been kind of the primary focus of a lot of organizing. But what we're trying to say is that in this moment, with the threat of fascism coming up, and we'll sort of illustrate why, that's not enough. What we have to do is actually take power, organize our communities, and protect our communities. So the core curriculum basically has 4 components to it. David, you want to speak about the first one, the meta context?
The first one is what we call the meta context. I sometimes call this reality. And the reality is that we live in a system of patriarchy, imperialism, white supremacy, and capitalism. These are interrelated worldview, or how reality operates for people. Patriarchy, of course, is the move. It's not just around gender, although there's a huge overlap, but it literally is, as human beings, for 90% of the time that we have been on planet Earth, we were basically living in a cooperative kind of arrangement. It was not a female-dominated, but instead was actually a societies everywhere on the globe, more or less indigenous. And by the way, we all come from indigenous stock. That's another thing that's actually important to remember, right? So for 90% of the time that Homo sapiens lived on planet Earth, we were basically living in our little tribes in a cooperative, communalist fashion. There was an appreciation, and actually like a deep appreciation for both the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine. Patriarchy is that moment in time, roughly about probably 8,000 years ago, when it turned from a cooperator way of organizing our relationships to a dominator one. And it basically sort of sweeps the globe. Imperialism is sort of the next stage of it, which is the enclosure movement, where you sort of go to war against, you say, we are no longer as human beings connected to our sisters and brothers who are deer and elk and forest and trees and part of a living ecosystem. Now our little tribe actually takes over this area, and we go to war against not other humans, but literally nature itself, right? And we begin to enclose everything. It's a mindset that is actually different. That is basically imperialism or conquest, where you say this is ours, but we then begin to expand, and it begins to expand. And it is also what leads to the otherism. White supremacy is really an important new development on it. Remember that imperialism always otherizes. But in the United States of America, the definition and createness of whiteness, and this is really important, was done by the ruling elite in order to prevent multiracial, multi-ethnic solidarity based on a class analysis of the fact that the exploited and the boots on the neck are actually putting us together. We go into Bacon's Rebellion and to learn the creation of whiteness of this country. We can't do it here, but I encourage you to do the reading and do the research around Bacon's Rebellion to learn a time in U.S. history where basically indentured servants who came out of the debtors' prisons, who were there because of the enclosure movement, who had skin like me, right? Then worked in solidarity with people who had skin like Galen, who, for those of you who don't know, Galen is black. He's in the back there. But the point is that realizing if I'm the indentured servant with the boot on my neck, you're the enslaved African, and here's what's really interesting. In the 1600s, there was more or less, like we were both more or less equally exploited. But when we got together against the ruling elite said, oh no, we cannot allow that to happen. So they literally created the concept of whiteness, which meant that they literally, under law and culture, gave me and people who look like me certain privileges to rise me up over Galen. Now, did they rise me up over to make them equal to them? Hell no, right? I tell any white person who gets all excited about white, like the white nationalists, if you think that really matters to the real ruling elite, why don't you go to a country club, knock on the door and say, I ain't got no money, but I'm white. Can I swim in your swimming pool? And see what those bastards tell you. They don't fucking care about us. The ruling elite do not care about poor working class white people, except to the extent that they can put me against Galen, because they know if Galen and I start rolling deep and rolling together, we will win.
That's right.
Yeah. Whiteness and white supremacy is created in order to divide us, and we have to understand that. And the last part of meta-context is capitalism, which is literally defined as an economic model that is premised upon the exploitation of human labor and the exploitation and commodification of natural resources, our Mother Earth. That is literally the definition of capitalism. And if you understand that, you have to understand it is literally based on exploitation and oppression. And if I'm right about capitalism morphing into neo-fascism, and I am right, if I'm right about that, these meta-context of reality, we as Greens need to actually understand that. And we spend about an hour, sometimes an hour and 15 minutes really going deep on all of these. Again, I'm just describing the module, but that's what we do in that one.
Great. Okay, so the next module that we go into is talking about the current historical moment. And this is where we can get into basically how fascism has manifested here, and how and you know how it is manifesting now, and how we can analyze and pick apart the particular historical moment that we find ourselves in. And this is where we do delve deep into Marxism, I rely a lot on the theories of Antonio Gramsci, who was one of the original anti-fascists in Italy in the 1920s. Tony G.
A true OG.
He is the true OG, yes. We basically go into first, how history actually happens. And I'm trying to get the view here, and well, we'll just sort of bear with me here. In the Marxist view, and actually in Gramsci's Marxist view, let's just say, because it was different from the official Marxist view, which kind of assumed a kind of evolutionary pathway to socialism, which, as we know in the 1920s, didn't actually happen. right? And so like what the 1920s actually did was it changed a lot of people's views on actually how history happens. It's not a kind of progress type thing from like, you know, primitive to better to better to better to whatever the perfect society is. What a lot of Marxists now kind of realize is that history kind of goes in a kind of what we call in ecology a disequilibrium model. So there's a period of stability and economic growth, of course, a break or a rupture, something that happens to destabilize that order, and then a period of crisis, right? And crisis, right, it not just means a breakdown of the existing order, it also is a kind of opportunity, right? It's an opening. Anything can happen, but that depends on, right, what Gramsci's called the relations of force, the balance of class forces, but also the conditions of struggle. What are the social, cultural, the institutional frameworks, right, that we have, and the tools that we have at our disposal for struggle, right? In the 1920s, the 1920s is probably the most analogous point that we have to where we are now, in that it is a crisis of capitalism, right? In that there is the collapse of the ruling order, which has kind of has morphed left and right into kind of one big corporate party, but also the rise of reactions to that collapsing order from both the left and the right. So in the 1930s, we saw the unprecedented growth, and of course the Russian Revolution being one of the successes of the socialist revolution, but also the rise of fascism and reactionary right-wing movements, right? So,
and really quickly, it's important to recognize that the reason that crisis is happening and the reason it was revolutionary was because economic reality was shifting and changing around labor, because it was moving from the agrarian society to the industrial society. So it was literally a restructuring of society, which created those inherent contradictions, which led to the rupture, or the conjuncture moment and a rupture. And so that's the direction that it took. That's why it's analogous, because we are in the similar kind of revolution. We're going from an industrial age to where robotics and technology are literally leading us to laborless production.
Right.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Did you create this curriculum yourself with all the slides and everything? Is this you or did you get it from?
The answer is yes. I mean, this is built on a lot of people's work, but Mel and I together have created this. That's a fair question.
I find it's impressive.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, thank you. A lot of this
it looks like this because of Mel. I got it.
I did the graphics. Thank you. Actually, I should mention that this past semester, especially because of the situation at Berkeley, we had a seminar on fascism. Actually, there were several reading groups and seminars amongst the faculty and graduate students at Berkeley, and so a lot of this is kind of a synthesis of that work as well. Okay. So I want to acknowledge the sort of learning environment that I had for this kind of stuff, right? So it's very grounded in academic study. So here's sort of like the historical crisis as it played out in the 1920s. And again, remember that period of destabilization and crisis. Here's what Antonio Gramsci had to say about it. He said, "The crisis consists precisely in the fact that the old is dying and the new cannot be born. In that interregnum, a great variety of morbid symptoms appear." It is also translated as, "Now is the time of monsters." And of course, Gramsci at the time was imprisoned by Mussolini's regime in 1926, died in prison in 1937, but in that time produced an incredibly brilliant, he had a lot of time to think, right? So he really went deep on analyzing what he had just gone through, and that's the lessons that we have to take with us today. So here's this sort of period of growth. I also want to mention that imperialism and war were a big part of the catalyst of this crisis. So not only did you have kind of peak imperialism, you had World War I and the Russian Revolution, right, as kind of, again, manifestations of this crisis of accumulation that was sort of starting to happen here in the 1920s. Now, I'm going to just flag this real quick, because here's the period of crisis right here in the 1920s in Europe. And for a brief period of time, just about 4 years, the Second and Third Congress of the Communist International, and these, again, were the people who had literally just successfully taken over a country, right, with a workers' revolution, and were trying to spread it, right? So that's Lenin, Trotsky, Gramsci. It started with Luxembourg, and well, it starts with Rosa, then she gets killed. Then, but then, I mean, what I want to kind of impress upon here is that there's a whole like collaborative effort of like a whole generation of successful socialist revolutionaries grappling very actively, and these are like, you know, conversations of generals, right, grappling with the threat of fascism, right? It gets shut down. Let's just say Lenin died, Stalin took over and chucked it in the bin.
So actually, in one sentence, I just want to say it's important. Rosa Luxemburg is literally killed by the Social Democrats' leaders, right? The neoliberals, like, so she gets
classical
killed.
Liberals,
the classical
original
liberals, but what we think of as neoliberals, so they kill Rosa Luxemburg. Stalin, of course, assassinates Trotsky, and Mussolini, the fascist, imprisons and basically kills Gramsci. So there is here the road not taken, right? The united front against fascism. Mel and I have come to the absolute conclusion, like, that's actually the path forward. And so what we're trying to do, to the best of our ability, is to both teach a theoretical grounding and then experiment with this, both within the Green Party and outside of the Green Party.
Right. And so, you know, again, why does this history matter? Why does understanding this history in this particular way matter? Because it's one way we can look at how the politics of the moment, the ground is literally shifting underneath our feet as we speak. So let's look at our own crisis in that same way, right? So we have the financial crisis of 2008 is kind of like that catalyst moment that sets off the crisis. Then you have this kind of wave of revolt as a response to that crisis. First with Arab Spring, and then Occupy in 2011, that's the uprising in the streets. And then in Europe in 2014, it begins to move into electoral politics. And that kicks off what we have been seeing across the global north as an international political realignment in the US and Europe. It started with the rise of the parties, left parties like Syriza and Podemos in Greece and Spain respectively. Syriza did rise to power, but then failed, right, to transform the relationship of Greece with the EU. But, you know, you are seeing, and of capital, right, thank you. But what we are seeing, we've seen it with Mélenchon, we've seen it with Corbyn, we are seeing it with, oh my God, I forgot the Austrian Greens name just now. Alexander, thank you. Thank you, sorry, just flew it out of my head, my bad. But also Jesse Klaver, right? And so what we're seeing is actually this neoliberal status quo, which relied on the two-party system, right, which relied on tracking to this radical center, which really means the rule of capital, starting to erode, right? We have, of course, Obama and Clinton, right? We see how well that one went, right? Theresa May, we see how well she's doing, right? So the neoliberal consensus is collapsing, and we're seeing this two-dimensional system starting to break out into three dimensions, right? The neoliberal center, which is in decline, and again, rising insurgent wings on the left and the right.
So I want to stop for a moment. This is what I mean when Mel and I believe that the center cannot hold, that like this cannot actually continue, right?
That's the old world.
That's the old world, right? So it's going to go one of three. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe neoliberalism is able to hold. We can go very deep why we are absolutely convinced it will not, which means the world is literally coming to a global conjuncture movement where we're either going to have, you know, frankly, the Green Party's
as
vision.
Rosa Luxemburg said.
Yes, as Rosa Luxemburg said. Or we're going to see, as Rosa Luxemburg said,
socialism or barbarism, right? And and we're seeing this, and so here, actually, wait a minute, sorry. What we're seeing here, so part of what we do is we kind of go deep into what is happening in the United States and the social realignment that is coming out in 3 dimensions. So this is the ruling neoliberal coalition, and I've actually color-coded them to show that the complicity of both parties in this, right? So these are the social layers that are in the ruling bloc right now, and then these rising movements on both the left and the right, right?
And I want to stop for a moment.
Yeah.
Or were you, before you
go for it.
All right, so look, I think it's important when she says color-coded, the urban coastal elites basically breaking with the Democratic Party. The neocons, imperialists breaking with and the fossil fuel industry basically breaking with what the Republican Party represents. The same thing is true with the professional class and the non-profit industrial complex breaking with the Democrats. The multinational corporations are actually one of the few groups literally playing both sides and playing both sides successfully. And go ahead.
Okay, no, go ahead.
And so the left and the social movements take a look at what they sort of represent, right? Which is to say genuine social movements. People who are literally independent of either the Democratic or the Republican Party groupings or formations. It is literally organic. It is actually autonomous. It's ordinary people actually coming together and trying to figure shit out. And almost in every opportunity, what ends up happening is the ruling elites try to get them into the nonprofit industrial complex. They'll cherry pick them. One of the most impressive things about Occupy Wall Street was that they literally refused to become the troops for the Democratic Party. They said no, which is why, I see your hand, which is why, and I'm going to name it, that Barack Obama and the Department of Homeland Security used the apparatus of the national government to destroy the Occupy camps because they were afraid of what it represented. Obama did that shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Manny.
So right now,
Yes.
that we're talking about the right reactionaries,
Mm-hmm.
Actually since the man, we call him the orange man in the
Yep.
White House.
Why not?
Since January 2017, with the travel ban, actually ICE should be in the reactionaries because ICE really has been targeting.
That
Yes. And I need
we
to-
get better
that's
every time
why-
we do it. You're totally right.
Absolutely.
Thank you. That is absolutely right. Go ahead,
I have a
Darlene.
quick question too. So I'm wondering what you think we fall at as a party, like where around that spectrum. So right, and I knew that was the answer, but I guess my question is, there's no political parties there but for the burners, right? And so do you see us as being a social movement?
So the answer is, we are, yes, I see your hand. I would answer that we are the electoral arm of the social movements, right?
Yeah.
So,
The slide that's here is
Say it again?
basically copied from.
yes,
the-
we aspire to be.
Right,
Yes, we are aspiring to be.
That's my
Yes.
point.
And I do want to say that as Greens, and I got your hand, sister, what we have to do actually is, I believe, reach out to those social movements and invite them not to our meetings, but to invite them to our ballot lines, to invite them to use the Green Party to continue to engage in the intellectual battle. Galen, one of the ways that I've been talking about this, and I know you'll appreciate this language, we should look at elections as another front of struggle, right? And elections, I am not interested in doing whatever it takes to get to 50% plus one. Fuck that! I'm interested in looking at elections as a barometer. How successfully am I organizing for revolution? How well am I doing at convincing people to restructure society? Authentically engaging in elections for this vision that the Green Party's principles and values of peace, democracy, ecology, and social and racial justice represents.
Yes. Well, first of all, good afternoon. My name is Asantor Nkrumah Toure, and I live in organized Green Party in Philadelphia.
Welcome.
Well, thank you.
I want to bet you back on this sister's question. how does this or how should this influence our organizing as a Green Party?
Thank you.
Because at this stage, the Green Party needs to really focus more, not to the exclusion of elections, but more on organizing to help us build a base, both political and social, to run people for election, and to also train and groom young people to run for office and not to be old people.
Thank you.
So I think with this, what you have here on the left, if we are part of the social movement, we have to be very particular about those successes we have had in organizing in the broader social justice movement.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure if we have a lot other than we run for progressive folks for president or whatever else. And that really needs to be hashed out.
That's right.
Even if we cannot hash it out this weekend at this conference. But it's something that we should think about to help us go forward.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, your name one more time?
Asantor and Kruma Ture, Green Party of
Asantor.
Philadelphia.
Thank you so much, because you just prompted us to, like, basically this is what we're trying to sort of kind of talk about in this moment. How do we protect communities? Because there is a real threat out there.
So can I just add something?
Yeah.
Just as an example, I live in Philadelphia. I know Black Lives Matter in Philadelphia. I know other similar groups. And so does Galen. But when they think of an electoral arm of the social justice movement, they don't think of the Green Party, because right now they're kind of dismissive of all.
Which is to say, we've got work to do everywhere.
We got work to do.
Right.
So
Right. And I came into the Green Party. I've been a registered Green since I was 18, but I only got active in the Green Party. I've come from the social movement.
So
You know?
Jennifer, I see your
So-
hand. I'm really gonna, please continue with clarifying questions, but discussion, like otherwise we're not gonna be able to give
Gotta
you the
get through
description.
it.
This is a day-long session that we do. Jennifer,
Well, we'd like to do this in Florida, but anyway.
Well, invite us.
Yes.
Okay, well, I just want to say, like, when you look at the picture there, I mean, one in the middle, like, the worst to me, and I just see what do you think about this, but to me, the hardest group, the one we're fighting, seem to be fighting against the most, struggling with the most, is the elite representatives of identity-based groups.
Thank you for prompting.
Because that is
For
where I
listening.
see them always aligning with the Democrats to a fault, so.
but that needs to be unpacked.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Just one more, and then we do have to move on. But that was perfect, because I was just about to talk about that. So, yeah.
So I guess I will piggyback off of
Piggyback.
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 That's your back.
the Green from Philadelphia said, I mean, yeah, man, in terms of talking about alignment, diversity, looking at where I know I fit in a number of those categories over there on the left side right there as part of the social movement. But in terms of trying to reach certain groups of people, where does that identity look like?
so I gotta stop for a moment. We do not, so I go into pool halls, bowling alleys, beauty salons, and barbershops. I have conversations with taxi drivers about this basic stuff. I do not try to give a movement school for revolutionaries at the pool hall. Right? You talk in the language that people understand. So, Gary, this is a movement school for revolutionaries specifically designed for the Green Party to understand this theoretical orientation. You don't engage people on the day-to-day about this stuff. You engage people on the day-to-day about clean air to breathe, clean water to drink, health care for your children, right? Things that actually matter in their lives. The reality is that we should not expect that we are going to turn everybody in the country into a revolutionary. I'm trying to identify the revolutionaries that I can roll with. And one of the ways that Mel and I talk about it is, if you come and step to us and you are already a revolutionary who wants to restructure society, I want you to come away from your conversation with us saying, I want to roll with them and keep working. And if you're a progressive, at the end of messing with us, I want you to be a revolutionary. And if you're a liberal at the end of messing with us, I want you to be a progressive. If you're a moderate after fooling with us, can you guess? I want you to be a liberal. And here's the thing. If you are a principled conservative, everybody shifts one to the left, right? If you are a principled conservative, after fucking with us, I want you to have a messed up worldview. I want you to be having to rethink your entire reality, because I want us to have disrupted your thinking. And the last thing is, if you are an actual alt-right, and I hate that word because I'm going to call them fascists,
Because that's what they are.
because that's what they are, you're my enemy. I have
Right.
no room to mess with, try to find relationship with them. I am in battle. Ideological, metaphorical, and when necessary, physical battle with the fascists. Make no mistake about it.
Good night, white pride. Anyway, so, but okay, I wanna kind of like bring it back because there's all of these questions about organizing, but part of what theory is about like orientating you so that like basically instead of like we're all doing stuff, but if we are on the same page in terms of an understanding of the moment that we're in and the historical task that lies before us, right? That it's kind of like a lens through which we can like assess our situation wherever we're at, and will like basically color and influence the actions that we take, the decisions of what kind of actions we take, who we work with, and how we do that. Yeah.
Just a quick follow-up, because his brother's making a point.
That wasn't my question.
Right.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, let me just finish though. He's making a point here that this is really that political education is really valuable.
Yes.
But after the political education, you need to take it the next step.
Yes.
And we have to get to a point where we are on the same page about how to engage, right? How to get people into the party. He wants to know, how do I get people to come to a chapter?
But that's not like we can't do that here.
But
I understand.
there's stuff about that at the end.
At the end, okay,
So
good,
like
good,
if we can
okay,
just
good.
get through just
Okay,
the presentation
okay,
of the
good.
historical
All right,
moment,
good.
then we can get into a discussion
Okay.
about what to do, because there is a thing of
Okay,
what to
good.
do about it.
Good.
Okay. Sir, can you hold your question or is it a clarifying question on
question.
this right now?
Was the Stein recount a revolutionary tactic from the social movements, and if so, was it an effective?
No,
It
it was not.
I didn't hear the question.
Was the Stein recount a revolutionary move driven by the social movements? Of course not. Next slide.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, so given this, right? How do we look at this moment, where we are at, what we need to do? And in order to do that, again, there's an analytical framework that we have to look at history, right? What's possible, what's not, where can we push, right? So again, Gramsci's two things of how do we look at this opening and this conjuncture is, number one, the relations of force, right? Between the social movements, that left part, the capitalist class, which are our enemies, right? And the state apparatus, which is wedded to the capitalist class, right? And so there are different things. There are political parties, there are donors, there's the police, right? And the military. And of course, on our end, we've got organization, we've got stripes, we've got all the tools at our disposal. The other thing that we want to think about is the conditions of struggle. Where is society at right now, right? So we have, our intelligentsia, we've got pop culture, movies, TV, media, the news and social media. We've got civil society institutions like churches, like educational institutions. And we have our national institutions, nationalism, the military, the state, right? And that's where I want to get back to this elite representatives of identity-based groups. One of the things we have to understand, right, when we're trying to understand the rise of fascism, is the articulation with the Obama administration of, again, the elite representatives of the identity-based groups and the economic project of neoliberalism, right? Obama administration was basically neoliberalism and the economic system that's hurting us all with a black face on it, right? And what it's doing to the working class, they are seeing that together, which is fueling racial resentments that have been there for hundreds and hundreds of years, right? And so that is so this racism, right, that is being whipped up by this particular articulation of somebody with a minority identity and that economic project that is funneling wealth to a small minority of white people, white men, right? to this nationalism, right? And your civil society institutions, especially those of white supremacy. Who here knows the whole like 14 characteristics of fascism thing? You guys seen that? Yeah. It kind of like works like a checklist, right? You're like, okay, check this off, oh my god, we're in fascism, right? Like everybody gets freaked out after like doing the checklist because they're like, oh my god, it's all here. One way that I learned in the seminar to understand fascism through a lot of the readings and deep readings that we did was to look at it as a historical process. It didn't look the same in Italy as it did in Germany, didn't look the same in Spain as it did in Italy or Germany, right? But what it was a historical process, right, that produced different kinds of fascism in different places, right? But there are some like kind of common sort of historical themes, right, that came out in each of these processes. So a few of these is, one, the contradiction between monopoly capital, right, which in order to extract more and more profit, you have to oppress more and more people, right? But at the same time, you have a state that's supposedly democratic, right? And so that contradiction is one that leads to that destabilization. The other thing is military imperialism, right, and economic imperialism, and that thing of like we need to go back to made in the USA, right? That impulse to like come back in. We're too globalized. Oh my God, making people scared, broke, and angry. Number 3, ethno-nationalism and populism, right? So the invention of a mythical past. I always love that to think about it like that bit from Family Guy where it was like that Pepperidge Farm commercial where it's like, remember when, women knew their place and certain people weren't allowed on the golf course? Pepperidge Farm remembers. That whole mythical, like everything was so good back in the 1800s. Well, yeah, for white men, right?
With money.
With money, with land and property, right? In the 1920s, so this is very interesting because in the 1920s, remember, the socialist and communist revolutions were strong, and they had to be destroyed by fascism in order for fascism to win out as the pole that kind of wins over. So in 1920s, fascism included a component of counter-revolution against the left and workers' movements. It's not that much today, but I will say that actually, they are going after communists in particular. There is a reason why that poem begins with, first they came for the communists. Why do you think that is? Given what we just said. If the center's collapsing and the left and the right are moving up and the far left, who's their competition? Not the neoliberals. It's going to be us eventually, right? So we got to think about that. Number 4, of course, 5 is the media manipulation to destabilize the notion of truth. Anyone who's been anyone who's been emotionally and mentally abused knows that what controllers do, they take that kernel of truth or that thing that you're insecure about and they manipulate the hell out of it, right? And that's exactly what you're seeing Steve Bannon and Trump doing, right? And
literally they are gaslighting the white working class.
Yes.
They are gaslighting the white working class. That's literally what they're doing.
And so are the neoliberals, by the way, right? The Clintons and it's literally the same guy, David Brock, right?
Special place in hell for him.
There's a special place in hell for David Brock, and I mean that. All right, and finally and very important is the opportunistic alliances between the forces of capital and the state. Remember, it's a merger of corporate and political power. If it comes up between hyper-capitalism in an authoritarian way, even if it means genocide, and a genuine workers' revolution and democracy, what do you think the powers that be are going to pick? Right? They still want their spot on the VIP list, right?
France is an example where The Economist literally was freaking out, both in the French election and the English election, is, oh my God, we might have to choose between the fascist and a socialist. I want you to think about that for a minute. That was a real concern for them. Who will we choose? There's an answer to this. Every time, if it's the fascist and anybody else, it's the other side.
I would argue that was a problem for us because the French didn't, I mean, we made a big deal about it, but the French are very used to socialist government.
I said the Economist magazine. But
Yeah. A very, very important essay that we read was by Arthur Rosenberg, which was called Fascism as a Mass Movement. This is what separates what I think is genuine fascism from the things that, like, you check off the list in your, it's different from an authoritarian state, a police state. Thank you. We're almost done with this. So he actually talks about sort of how fascism moves from being something on the fringe, being something, even if it's within the state, that doesn't enjoy majority support, to something that enjoys majority support. His question was not about the stormtroopers, it was about the good Germans, right? And how did society end up accepting the murder of 11 million people, right? And he's writing this in 1934, right after Hitler takes government, right? And he's talking about the stormtroopers. And I just want to read this real quick because it's a really great kind of thing to have in mind. It's a great analogy to have in mind. Imagine a fight where there are 5 people on one side, armed only with sticks, and a group of 10 persons on the other, each carrying a revolver. At first, these 10 persons do not dare to use their revolvers. The 5 people with sticks can laugh at them with impunity. Suddenly, a young fellow turns up and rushes on the 5 of them with a loud cry. Only now does the group of 10 draw its revolvers and shoot down its 5 defenseless opponents. In this analogy, the young chap who runs out shouting is fascism, and the 10 armed individuals are the bourgeoisie and their legal state power. The 5 people with sticks represent the organized working class. In short, the emergence of fascism never alters the real balance of class forces between the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. If the proletariat were really stronger than the bourgeoisie, it would win, with or without fascism. However, if the capitalist class is objectively the stronger force, then the emergence of fascism can bring about the collapse of the workers' movement. There was a question online, or a comment online. Somebody said, after you said that you would fight fascists, that somebody said that they would never physically assault someone based on their views. This is what the main thing that I am trying to diffuse right now. This is not just about people's views. And anyone who thinks that is privileged enough, okay, to make it an intellectual argument. Okay, those people who are on the front lines against the alt-right, the students who are being bombarded with white nationalist propaganda, the students who are getting death threats and harassment, getting doxxed, they're being physically threatened right now. Right now with DACA, they're going after DACA students. They're going to take away their provisional citizenship and deport them and report them to ICE. Okay, there are real bodies at stake, right? And so when we say that, and this is a perfect example of that. And then here, the terrorist squad succeeded because they could always count on the state. Who here has been to a counter-protest of an alt-right rally? How did the police respond? They protected the Nazis, and they repressed the left, right?
Sorry, that just happened last week when I was in Chicago, and there was KKK actually. And, the Black Lives Matter, and the police started spraying, and gassing to the people from Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
That's right.
You got it.
That's right. That's basically, we are frontline communities, and this is a physical confrontation. It is not about free speech. It is about protecting people. It is about protecting bodies. Okay? Real quick, on the evolution,
Very quick, 'cause we
on the
have to do
alt-right, this is how they moved from the online communities to the real world, okay? They've been around for a long time. I used to be on 4chan back in the beginning. It was fun. It was funny. It was, but then somewhere around 2014 in the Gamergate controversy, when that burst out into the mainstream media, suddenly they found that, we can manipulate real culture, like real life culture. And they get off on this, okay? This is another thing to understand about this. In 2015, after the Dylan Roof shooting and school shootings in Oregon, they got even sort of more bold about their ability to influence real life. this is when the real right wing, the neo-Nazis, start to infiltrate and collaborate. I mean, at least from the research that I've done, this is what seems to have happened. Then, of course, Trump, enough said. In 2017, and this is what people have to understand, there is an active organizing effort to recruit college students on campuses all over this nation. They are flyering white nationalist propaganda on 144 college campuses, okay? It's not just Berkeley. Who remembers before Berkeley someone got shot in Washington? Was that about free speech? Right? How about the 2 people that got stabbed in Portland? How about the 20+ attacks on college campuses that are politically motivated? Right? There are real bodies at stake here, and this is why the Greens need to show up, because no one else is showing up for them. Everybody is buying this free speech argument and siding with Bill Maher, siding with, like, whose side do you think you're on when Ann Coulter thanks you for standing up for free speech? While undocumented students are afraid to come to school. While I'm afraid to come to school as a lecturer because I teach radical theory and I don't want somebody bursting into my classroom with a gun.
10 minutes.
Right? Okay. So basically the threat, you need to understand that. You need to understand what it does. Finally, what do we do? Right? And so this, going back to that United Front period, right, this thing that was developed by all of the socialist revolutionaries, was basically about consolidating that third pole. That was also a time when the left had fragmented after the collapse of the German socialist revolution, right? And so, again, they're grappling with these very issues right now. And what did Lenin, Trotsky, and Gramsci kind of come up with, and Gramsci tried to implement in Italy before he was arrested? It was a united front that organized the rank and file of the working class, right? So you had the leaders of the Social Democratic Party, you had those leaders of the Communist Party that were too sectarian to unite the working class. So Lenin was like, let's just go around them and organize the rank and file where they're at. Okay, number 2, it was rooted in the immediate defense of communities against fascism. How do you win people over? How do you win people over to the party? You stand up for them. You show up. I will guarantee you, if the Greens start showing up and organizing the community to come out to protect people against the alt-right and the fascists, people will start seeing the Greens in a better light. Because you know what? The Democrats are busy turning their backs, or they're like shitting on Antifa because they're the only ones that are actually going to put their bodies physically between somebody who's being targeted and a fascist. Remember that it comes from anti-fascists. They're not the same as fascists. They're literally anti. Hello, right? So, and that what the other thing that the United Front did was it achieved 2 things. It not only united the left as a political force in the working class, but it also, in doing so, it trains the working class in the art of self-government, right? In uniting together to not just protect the community, but to improve the community through whatever means, electoral or not, it actually, it gives us exercise and practice in the working class. It empowers them, okay? And so this was the plan. The plan got shelved. It was the road not taken, but we can take it now.
And really quickly, so a couple of things. When we talk about Rosa Luxemburg, remember Ms. Luxemburg was like kind of brilliant whenever she said the reform or revolution. She sets that up to say that's a false dichotomy. You have to fight for reforms that actually make people's lives better. You actually get in the streets, Gary, and get with the communities to do the things that actually show them that their lives can be better. But here's the danger, says Luxemburg, and she is correct. There is a danger that you can become a reformist. You can get into the trap of getting into the bourgeois society and the bourgeois trap of I'm just fighting for one reform after another. So a true revolutionary has to understand you fight for those reforms, yes, to make them better, but you continue to struggle for a restructuring of society. This is a really important point. Darlene.
Well, Rosa Luxemburg also talks about the importance of spontaneity.
That's right.
Right?
Right.
Correct.
So the issue is that we need to allow for spontaneous developments, right, and action to occur. So we need to learn how to balance that as Greens, because we have this tendency to want to organize and control everything.
Right, or the other thing is that I'll say, are we through with the slides?
Yeah, no,
All
I'm
right,
just
so
saying,
lights back on,
this
please.
is one way of assessing
Right.
that.
Are we ready
This
for
is one way of
comment?
assessing that.
Yes,
So yeah, we'll take
that's
that.
right. Thank you. So what we're going to do, I want to conclude with this, and I'll pick up on this, and then we're going to go Gloria, Melody, Gil, and then this gentleman, I don't know you, I'm sorry, so John. Okay. And
We got a
then
thumbs
here.
up on restructuring
Very,
society.
very
Come on.
quickly. So the thing is, Darlene, I think that what you said is actually absolutely brilliant. As Greens, like, we have to let experiments happen. Stop trying to control it. Like, if somebody has a different thing that they're going to do, then let them go do their different thing. Like, we do our thing. Like, let's actually have experiments. Stop trying to say, that is sectarian nonsense. Knock it off, Greens.
Yeah.
We need
Sorry.
all of it.
Knock it the fuck off.
Give me one,
Thank
Darlene.
you.
Gloria, brilliant comment.
Thank you, Mel and David. This was awesome, and a little intro to what people can do to have you for a full day. We're working on that in New York. So what I'm really glad that's come up, especially David, the way you described, like take that, help people or work with people to take that next step to the left. Because
Yes.
what I'm concerned about is both on the local level, the state level, and the national level, there has become what I consider a false dichotomy. Are we a party who is going to recruit and ally with the oppressed, the non-voters, a certain constituency of people that we often talk about in our platform and our candidates talk about wanting to help? Or are we going to ally with the disaffected Democrats, the damn exits, maybe Green enter, maybe not, the burners, whatever you want to call it? No, that is not
It is a
possible.
false dichotomy.
It's a false dichotomy, and
It
I
is.
don't think we're at a point where we can select one, because there are different ways of doing it in
got
different
you, Gary.
places, but I think that that is a conversation we have to have.
Correct. And I want to just say, Gloria, literally when we have a full day,
Yeah.
that conversation
Yeah.
comes up time and time again. The next thing, I'll put you on the stack, you're number 5.
But just what, I mean, I'm in the
six.
Green
Gary's
Party
back
to
there.
contest for power. I say
Yeah.
that all the time. Some people are not, and so that's.
I got to tell you, Gloria, one of the things is I'm in it to win it, right? I mean, too many folks that I have come into contact with seem to have contented themselves with developing the precision of their theory and are not actually engaged in action. So therefore, you actually can't do praxis if you're not actually doing shit, right? And when you actually do things, it becomes messy. Right? And it's not always exactly clear on what to do. And you know what? Here's another thing. I will have the humility. I might be wrong. I've made mistakes. I'll continue to make them. So Green, stop yelling at people if we make mistakes. Can we please have a better culture than that? My mama taught me better than that. Right? Like, like knock it off. Melody, number 2.
Quickly, I want to make a statement that my socialist and communist friends tell me, quoting Gramsci all the time, and you respond to it. They said when Hitler got into power, there was like a green type of candidate that ran against him and pulled enough votes from the Social Democrat, and that's how he got in. And they are, just let me finish, and they are using that to justify, working for Hillary Clinton, that was better than the Neo Fascists. So please.
So yeah, so actually I'll just go real quick into that. Gramsci was part of the breakaway of the Italian Communist Party from the Italian Socialist Party in like 1920 or something like that. Okay, so he had been working on that division. At some point, he was looking at the rise of fascism and looking at how the working class has been split because of the manipulations of the socialists. And so he was like, okay, well, that didn't work because now there's a split. How do we go about it? And that's precisely why he joined up with Lenin and Lenin's idea of actually fuck the leaders, right? We're going to organize the rank and file workers where they're at.
And
right?
this is
So
really
that's what the United Front was about.
So-
The United Front was precisely a response to that question.
So you go and win over the people who are thinking, well, do I have to go to Clinton because Trump is so bad? Like, no, we don't go to the leadership, but we don't make alignment with the neoliberals. Like, no, we actually, frankly, go to the burners and convince them to come in, and we grapple together and learn from each other. We welcome them as much as we welcome people who have been disaffected and not participating at all. We welcome them. Back to Gloria's point, it's a false dichotomy. You actually are, we're going to grow from both if we're actually going to restructure society. Number 3 was Gil.
All right, so what do we do as a Green Party, right? What we don't do is we don't run 20 people in New York that get 3% over and over again. Okay, so that's why we're recruiting Hakeem Browder, who's trying to shut down Rikers. That's why we recruited Anthony Becker, who started the cop clock. That's why we recruited Jabari Brisbois, okay? The newer. What we do is we stand with the People's Organization for Progress. It's out there for 400 days in Colorado, right? That's not in the Green Party. So when we stand with them, we help build the Green Party.
That's right.
Okay? In the Mumia movement, we get Mumia out of death row. We get him out of isolation. We get him Hep C cure. And that Hep C cure is now available to people on Medicaid and now available in prisons all around the country, right? And half the people on that Mumia list in New York are in the Green Party. Because they don't walk around saying, we're the Green Party. They just do the work.
So we have, it's 2:14, so please be brief, John.
Oh, no, we had Gary too.
Okay, I got him.
I was after the next person.
So Gary, you're next.
I was number 5.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
As a co-chair of the Virginia Green Party, I faced a question to sort of speak to last week at the KKK rally in Charlottesville. And a lot of my members got on the listserv, they emailed me, they're like, are we going? Are we going to make a presence? What are we going to do? And there's a real split now between people in Virginia who want to just focus on electoral politics. And they've got an argument because they're really succeeding by doing that focus. We've got some great candidates who are doing things. And we've got people who say, no, we need to be out carrying a banner. And as it turned out, 40 clock banners showed up, most of them from North Carolina. 1,000 people showed up to protest them, and things were following the police to be released. As a leader in the Green Party in Virginia, I'm not quite sure how to straddle.
Here's what if I were in Virginia, here's what I would say is, like a division of labor. If you are inspired to just work on elections, then just work on elections. If you want to go out there, go out there. I personally would be out there on the streets because even though I would normally just work on electoral points, when the KKK shows up, I'm going to show up. That's just me. We have a stack and we're out of time, Darlene.
I
So,
just want to say
well.
quickly that is a big misperception with our party that you have to do either or.
Right.
And when you do that, right, it creates a factionalism and fragmentation within our party. People who are inspired by activism and want to come in and use the party as their vehicle, then fine. And those who want to do electoral politics, that's fine too.
If we're going to hear from literally, we're out of time. So,
Wait.
I just want to comment on the slide because I can see what you guys are saying. The thing I see though is with the outright killing of people. When the Sandra Lansbury happened, I mean that is just shocked at all. And that's happened to so many people. My fear is with that middle.
do your 4 now.
Well, I want to make sure Gary gets in there.
Well,
He's had his hand up.
yeah.
Okay. I'm going to do Gary's comment real quickly, and then I'm going to close out.
I mean, I just want to continue to extend to some of these folks in there. We have these conversations. You get folks that come into the Green Party that are just up there trying to visit. They need to understand what you're talking about. Some people that are going to be in the room are not going to know what you're talking about. So you need to have a level where we're able to bring it down to some people who are trying to come into the Green Party who don't understand fascism, who don't understand some of the stuff you guys are talking about. This is very critical because these are your independent voters all across the country. They may not understand this terminology, but they understand how to vocabulary.
Right.
No, that's true. And we do this, and remember, this is a day-long school that we're training Greens in and other progressives so that you have this in your utility belt when you go out and talk to those folks.
Do your 4
This is not for those folks. So last thing I'm going to close out with, there are 4 things that we can all do as Greens to help in this fight against fascism. Number 1 is show up, right? If people aren't showing up in force peacefully, the people who are being targeted have no recourse but to the Black Bloc and to Antifa. And I will tell you the story of Berkeley if you want, but not now. But in private. But I will say that if you show up to defend peacefully, it's better, right? But number 2, do not give the alt-right power. Remember that they get off on having their online stuff getting translated into real life. Even if it's a great criticism of Clinton, don't repeat it. That gives them power. Remember, the enemy of your enemy is not your friend. Number 3 is, again, work in coalitions to address fascism. Right now, there is an inter-campus network against fascism that is being formed as we speak. Let me know. I will send more info on it. Because there is an active effort to organize across campuses and communities as well. The more that we organize together and recognize this threat and let people know about the threat and stand up for it, the more that we will be out there as Greens doing that, and the more that people can see that they protect us. I'm gonna vote for them, right?
So the last thing that I want to say is this.
I want to say
this. We're doing these. We've done 5 or 6 of them. We have several more upcoming. We're going to Phoenix and Tucson later this month, I think, or next month. I know New York City, we're talking about it. We literally just landed October 21st for Southerners especially. The Lumumba Center, Jackson, Mississippi, October 21. We're going to be rolling. Yeah, right. I see several of you realize how important that is, right? Because one of the things that we talk about, Progressive Dane in Wisconsin, the Richmond Progressive Alliance in California, Cooperation Jackson, and Antar Lumumba being elected mayor there as concrete examples on what building united fronts against fascism and alliances can actually be. So we have multiples that are beginning to land. If you want to, you have to come with us to go at least through one day one. Mel and I are already thinking about a training for trainers because we know that we've got to have others. And Gloria, I'm looking at you and maybe others. We are Lou. I definitely we want to actually. It can't be the Mel and David show, right? Like what we need to do is spread it out, and we need to be like the populist uprising and the agrarian revolt, where they had 1,000 people talking about the movement that they were part of. And by the way, they both built credit unions and cooperatives and had a money system and a monetary theory and a political party. Like, to understand this. So if you are willing to think about bringing me and Mel, or me or Mel, David K. Cobb at Gmail, like hit me up. And we're probably going to start doing this online, where we actually are engaging.
This website will be launched soon.
Yeah, literally, this is a prototype, right?
Yep.
We're making it up as we go along. You make the path by walking. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll put it in a PDF format and I'll submit it.